Stop doing this before you ruin everything. This person you call Ur-S is pure evil, low-key competition. Have you ever felt uncomfortable around someone without knowing why, even though everyone else seems to trust them? Sometimes your heart notices quiet details long before your mind can explain them. Stay with this, because what you are about to hear is not about judging another person. It is about recognizing the difference between genuine support and silent comparison. There is something important here, especially if you have been wondering why certain conversations leave you feeling smaller instead of stronger. The answer may not be dramatic. It may simply be hidden beneath ordinary moments that have become too familiar to question. Think about the person you speak to whenever something meaningful happens in your life. You tell them your dreams, your victories, your worries, and even the parts of yourself that are still healing. At first, everything feels normal. They smile, they listen, and they say all the right words. Yet somehow, after those conversations, your excitement fades. You begin questioning your own decisions. Your confidence quietly slips away. It is easy to believe that this feeling comes from your own uncertainty, but sometimes the energy of a relationship is shaped by patterns that are so subtle they almost disappear. Healthy friendships leave room for growth. Quiet competition, however, often hides behind encouragement that never quite feels complete. There is another detail that many people overlook. Someone who is constantly measuring themselves against you rarely announces it. Instead, they may gently redirect every meaningful conversation back toward themselves. When something beautiful begins to happen in your life, they suddenly feel the need to prove that they have experienced something greater. When you celebrate a small success, they answer with a larger story. When you share a new beginning, they remind you of an old mistake. None of these moments seem serious on their own, yet together they create a quiet pattern that slowly changes how you see yourself. Do not miss what comes next, because recognizing a pattern is very different from assuming someone's intentions. The most important realization is not about deciding whether another person is good or bad. It is about asking yourself a gentler question. How do you feel after spending time with them? Do you leave feeling peaceful, inspired, and accepted, or do you quietly carry doubt that was never there before? Your inner peace deserves attention because it often speaks in whispers instead of loud alarms. The connections meant to help you grow will never require you to shrink your own light just to keep someone else comfortable. This quiet understanding is only the beginning, and the next part will reveal the signs that are even harder to notice because they often look like ordinary kindness. Sometimes the strongest clues are not found in what a person says, but in what quietly changes inside you after every interaction. You may notice yourself celebrating less, sharing less, or even questioning opportunities that once filled you with hope. Stay with this, because these changes rarely happen overnight. They appear little by little, until one day you realize you have been asking for permission to be yourself in places where you once felt completely free. That realization is not meant to create distance. It is meant to invite awareness. One of the quietest forms of competition is comparison disguised as concern. A person may constantly remind you to be realistic whenever you dream a little bigger. They may call it honesty, balance, or looking out for your future. Sometimes those words truly come from care, but sometimes they reflect their own fears rather than your reality. Notice whether they celebrate your progress with genuine joy, or whether every achievement is followed by a reason it may not matter as much as you think. Real encouragement gives you room to grow. Quiet comparison often leaves you feeling like growth must always be justified. There is also a difference between someone who listens and someone who simply waits for their turn to speak. Think about the moments when you opened your heart and expected understanding. Did they remember the details that mattered to you, or did every conversation slowly become centered on their own experiences? Relationships become stronger when both people feel seen. When only one voice consistently fills the space, the other begins to disappear without even noticing. There is something important here. Feeling heard is not a luxury. It is one of the simplest signs of mutual respect and emotional safety. As your awareness grows, you do not need to become suspicious of everyone around you. Instead, become more connected to your own sense of peace. Pay attention to the people who leave you feeling lighter rather than heavier, clearer rather than confused, and accepted rather than measured. The healthiest connections never ask you to compete for belonging. They quietly remind you that your value has never depended on being better than anyone else. In the next part, you will discover why some relationships remain confusing for so long, even when your heart has been trying to tell you the truth from the very beginning. There comes a quiet moment when everything begins to make sense, not because someone finally explains it to you, but because your own heart stops ignoring what it has been feeling all along. The confusion starts to fade, and small memories begin connecting like pieces of a puzzle. Conversations you once dismissed suddenly carry a different meaning. Reactions that seemed harmless now reveal a pattern you could not see before. Do not rush through this realization. Sometimes clarity arrives gently, and when it does, it deserves your full attention. Many people remain in confusing relationships because they keep hoping that one perfect conversation will change everything. They wait for the other person to suddenly understand them, to become more supportive, or to celebrate their happiness without comparison. Hope is a beautiful thing, but it should never require you to ignore your own experience. If you constantly have to explain why your joy matters, or if you repeatedly feel the need to make yourself smaller just to keep the peace, your heart is already giving you valuable information. Healthy relationships do not ask you to hide your growth. They quietly make room for it. There is another truth that often goes unnoticed. People who are secure within themselves naturally create space for others to shine. They are not threatened by your progress because your success does not diminish their own. They ask sincere questions, remember what matters to you, and celebrate your milestones without turning the moment back toward themselves. Their support feels calm rather than forced. After spending time with them, you feel stronger, not because they solved your problems, but because they reminded you of the strength that was already inside you. Don't miss what comes next, because this understanding can quietly change the way you choose every future connection. The most meaningful change begins when you stop searching for certainty about another person's intentions and start paying attention to the effect a relationship has on your own peace. You cannot always know what another person is thinking, but you can honestly notice how consistently you feel in their presence. Your peace is not something you have to earn, and your confidence is not something you should trade for acceptance. As this message continues, you will discover how quiet boundaries can protect your heart without creating conflict, allowing you to move forward with wisdom, kindness, and a deeper sense of self. The moment you begin choosing peace over constant explanation, something inside you starts to change. You no longer feel the need to convince everyone that your dreams matter or that your journey has value. A quiet confidence begins to replace the habit of seeking approval. Stay with this, because this shift is often the turning point. It is the moment you realize that protecting your peace does not require anger, distance, or dramatic words. Sometimes it simply means becoming more intentional about where your energy goes and who is invited into your most meaningful moments. Healthy boundaries are rarely loud. They are built through small choices that quietly reshape your life. You begin sharing your biggest plans only with people who have consistently shown kindness and sincerity. You stop feeling obligated to explain every decision or defend every new opportunity. Instead of asking whether everyone understands your path, you ask whether your path still feels true to your heart. This gentle change creates space for genuine relationships to grow naturally, because the people who truly care about you will respect your boundaries instead of feeling challenged by them. There is something deeply peaceful about realizing that not every relationship has to carry the same level of closeness. Some people belong in your everyday life, while others are simply meant to be part of a chapter that helped you learn more about yourself. That does not mean you stop wishing them well. It means you accept that every connection serves a different purpose. The people who genuinely support your growth will never compete with your happiness. They will find joy in seeing you become more confident, more authentic, and more at peace with who you are. There is something important here. The strongest relationships are built on mutual respect, not silent comparison. As you continue forward, remember that your greatest responsibility is not to figure out every hidden intention around you. It is to remain honest with yourself about what brings you peace, clarity, and genuine encouragement. When you honor those feelings, your relationships naturally become healthier and more meaningful. You begin attracting people who celebrate your growth instead of measuring themselves against it. That quiet transformation is already beginning. And in the final part, everything comes together with one simple truth that has the power to change the way you see both yourself and the people you choose to keep close.